At the Fang family meeting room, an assistant briefs Fang Daxang on everything that happened that day. He asks her to tell him about the income anomaly in the underground city that she mentioned. He asks her which underground city it is. She informs him that it was the insect cave, and according to the settlement staff down there, the income has almost doubled. Fang Chunni gets up immediately upon hearing the words insect cave. The girl explains that there's a guy named Yin Tian who single-handedly submitted almost 500,000 worth of magic crystals, and the total income has almost reached 1 million, which is 50% of the Fang family's share. Fang Quanshui gets up too after realizing that she's talking about Tian. Fang Daxang asks what happened to both of them and why they're making such a fuss. They both immediately say that it's nothing. The elder says that Tian is an F-tier hunter who joined them recently and that Fang Quanshui personally recruited him. Quanshui sweats nervously and doesn't know what to say. Fang Daxang says that this is rare for her to choose someone, so he asks her if she knows him since back then. She shyly says that he is a student in their school, and after she saw his strength, she told Fang Dun to pull him into their drill group. Fang Chunni angrily says that the Liu Tian squad that Tian joined is his subordinates group, and they had told him that Tian left the team without permission and didn't obey commands. He also says that Tian acts strange and does not seem like a good person. The elder speaks up for Tian by saying that Tian is very hard-working and has the best score in the weapon class that he taught. He also mentions that he actually likes him. He then says that as far as he can tell, Tian seems to be a person with integrity and not someone who would steal things. Fang Chunni stares at the elder in fury and thinks that it looks like he must be tired of living. The girl then reads from her report. She says that according to underground city statistics, all of the income is normal. Only the insect cave's income is increased, so this should rule out the possibility of pillaging. So Fang Daxang says that when they put it this way, it sounds like he's still an F-tier but a talented person. Fang Quanshui replies that even though he's an F-tier, he can defeat a D-tier. She says she doesn't know why his strength evaluation is always at the F-tier. So Fang Daxang says that's good. And since Tian is able to make money so well, he suggests that they should put him into the assault team officially. And since Fang Quanshui is the one recruited him, he would be her subordinate. He then says that he's also thinking of letting Quanshui participate in the company's affairs. He also says that she would have to build her own assault team afterwards. Fang Chunni angrily thinks how Liu Tian is such a good for nothing as he wasn't even able to do such a small task. Fang Daxang notices this and asks him why he looks like that and if he has something to say. He says he has nothing to say. He then thinks that the price of messing with his plans would be death. At the Q Tang University, a lecture is going on. However, all eyes seem to be on Tian. He wonders why everyone is looking at him. Even the teacher keeps staring at him. After class, Tian and YY walk home. She asks him where he's been recently because she hasn't seen him, and he's also not replied to any of her messages. Tian says that he's just been too tired to come to university, and his grades are good enough, so being gone for 2 weeks wouldn't make a difference. So she says that she heard people saying that he joined the Fang family. So she asks if it has anything to do with him not attending classes. Tian wonders who let that slip and just tells YY that he doesn't want to join the Fang family and that he has no abilities. YY realizes that Tian doesn't want to talk about this, so she decides to let it be for now. As they pass by an alley, they see a couple of guys and a girl beating up someone. Seeing that they're bullying him, YY shouts at them to leave him alone. One of them tells her that she's getting the wrong idea, while another guy tells her to not stick her nose where it doesn't belong. She then says that it's unfair for so many people to pick on just one guy. One of the bullies walks towards her while saying that she shouldn't think that they wouldn't hit her. Just as he's about to hit her, Tian throws a punch to his face, causing him to fall back. Tian tells him that if they have a problem, they should talk it out and not beat people up for no reason, and that bullying people only shows what weak cowards they are. Suddenly, the guys realize that he's Yin Tian. The girl also realizes that he's the Fang family guy. Soon, the bullies run away, thinking that the guy they bullied has a bodyguard. YY goes up to the guy and asks him if he's okay and if they should take him to the hospital. He immediately gets up and yells at his bullies that they should be glad to be alive. He also says that he has a bodyguard now, so he would like to see them try to beat him up now. This leaves Tian and YY feeling confused. The guy continues to call the bullies names and swear at them. So Tian and YY turn around and decide to leave as it looks like he's fine. After the guy is done yelling at his bullies, he turns around to thank Tian and YY, but they both have already left. The next day at the Q Tang University, Tian is beyond puzzled to see that the guy they helped before has started a Yang Tian club for him and is hiring recruits for it. He says out loudly that even though some people in the world are awakened, most people are still mundane. but some awakened hunters try to bully the weaker people. He then says that Yin Tian plans on being their savior and help such mundane people be free from bullying of the awakened people, and that anyone who joins the club would be protected by Tian. No matter who the person is or how many people, Tian would protect them. He then talks about his story of the escape from bullies after Tian showed up. One of the other students thinks that this guy must be mad to be recruiting people at school. Another student says that when he heard that Tian was joining the Fang family, he thought it was ridiculous, but it turned out that he's an F tier too, so he asks how he could protect anyone. Another student agrees to this and says that an F tier must be good against normal people but not against more powerful hunters. Tian runs up to the guy and smashes the table and tears the whole thing down, asking how he could make a stall for him. Later, he tells the guy that he's trying to bring people into a group that follows a guy who he does not even know. He asks him what he was thinking and when he asked for a fanbase. The guy says that Tian's heroism the day before really moved him and so felt like he could make a difference to the world. Tian orders him to get out of here and not do anything like this again. In class, students talk about how Tian got tangled up with the guy who was bullied. Another student says that the guy is clingy and won't be shaken off easily. The student behind YY tells her that Tian is the talk of the town again. YY thinks about how she didn't think the club was that bad, but it turns out that Tian's actions can draw out the attention of Ronin with ulterior motives, so they would have to be careful. Since people began to awaken their abilities, those with powers have taken advantage over those without. Eventually, the government began to take control of those with these abilities and many were recruited into security forces. However, some still remain who try to take advantage of mundane people. Some evil people are even worse than them. They usually abide by the law by day, but in secret, they take pleasure in killing people. At some point, they organized and started calling themselves Ronin, and they are a great danger to society. In a small alley, two guys talk amongst themselves. One of them says that Kuitang University has someone who's acting super bold by saying that he wants to set up a group to protect mundane people. The other guy says that the guy must be trying to declare war on them and should be taught a lesson. The guys then see a man walk by. One guy says that his suit looks expensive, so he must be rich, and the other guy says that they should get to work. Soon, the man asks them to let go of him. He asks them to not kill him and says that he would give them anything they want. The guy says that he got it wrong because they're not here for his money. He says that they came to kill him for his money. They walk towards him, ready to attack him, but before they are able to do so, someone grabs both their heads and they're both shoved to the ground by their heads. The person asks the man if he is alright. He tries to think of who she is and the girl says that she's a guardian. Guardians are those dedicated to protecting mundane people from hunters. She drops her card to the ground and underneath her hood is YY. Tian is at home, thinking about the guy who made the club for him. He cannot believe such people exist. He wonders how that guy could be like that. Tian's thoughts are soon interrupted by a notification on his phone. Picking it up, he sees that it's a message from the same guy, He Zhisheng. In the message, he apologizes for his actions and says that he wants to make it up to him. He says that he had a pass to an unknown dungeon, so he invites Tian to come with him and says that all the spoils will be his. Tian has no idea how this guy got his number, but he texts him a no anyways. He Zhisheng texts Tian back and says that he should make some time for him as their friends. However, Tian simply asks him to piss off. As the Fang Elder leaves the building to get to his car, someone creeps up behind him with a weapon. He senses this and turns around to see Fang Chunni. He asks the elder how he could dare to protect Tian against his own orders and stabs him with a knife. Chunni leaves a card next to him before fleeing. The team cleaning up the crime scene informs Fang Daxang that a card was found next to the corpse. Daxang is surprised to see that the Ronins killed someone in their own parking lot. Later, Tian goes up to Liu Tian and asks him which dungeon they would be going to today. Lan Zimo is angry that Tian is here and Liu Tian is mad that they lost their rewards because of Tian. So, he tells him that there's a C-tier raiding party that lacks some logistics, so he recommends Tian to go with them. Tian joins them and the group soon reaches the dungeon through the portal. The system presents Tian with a task of destroying all the monsters in the dungeon. The reward for this would be a physical recovery skill. Suddenly a monster shows up and the mages attempt to bind it. Within minutes the monster is set on fire and killed. The task completion is now at 20%. Tian is amazed that the monster didn't even get close to the mages. Tian is told that the first wave is done, so the logistics guys need to pick up all the spoils and the rest of them would go ahead. Yet another monster erupts from the ground, but that too is killed by the mages. The task completion level reaches 59%. As Tian picks up all the crystals, he watches them battle the C-tier boss called Cethonian. They raise their hands and chant and send sparks to the skies. This lands right on the boss monster and electrocutes it and kills it. Tian watches in awe, thinking that the power of magicians is amazing. One of the mages tells the others that they should go home and then they can go shopping later. As Tian walks towards them, he spots two blue spikes in the ground. When it moves, he sees that it is actually another monster. Tian tells the group that he would kill it. One of the guys tells him to not bother as that tortoise's defense is very high, and even a B tier or a tier master wouldn't be able to break its defense. He also mentions that last time, the Fang family had hired an S tier hunter to come kill it, but the magic crystals it dropped was only worth about 20 yuan, so it wasn't even worth the time and effort. A girl says that since it has a high defense and no offense, it's fine to leave it. She tells him it's more like an NPC and asks him to not to bother it. However, Tian doesn't believe that the tortoise is that tough, so he tries to attack it, which is when he realizes how powerful the tortoise is as his hands hurt a lot. So the guy tells Tian that they should head back, but Tian says he wants to give it another go and asks them to go ahead without him. The rest of the party leaves while thinking what an idiot Tian is. Tian swings his sword many times at the tortoise in hopes of injuring it, but it doesn't work. Since this has no effect on it, Tian decides to calm down and think about what to do. He tries to think back to all the perfect techniques he saw. Remembering the technique that the elder had taught him, Tian manages to land a perfect strike on the tortoise. This technique seems to work, so Tian feels happy that he figured out a way to do it. He continues to do this until the sun sets. At first, he had thought that he would only need about 10 perfect strikes, but right now, he's on the 98th perfect strike. He tells himself to not rush and remember the best strike. This strike makes the turtle croak and Tian has finally managed to injure it. The 99th perfect strike injures it further, and the 100th and final perfect strike allows him to slice off the head of the tortoise. Now that his task to destroy all the monsters in the dungeon has been successfully completed, Tian receives a physical recovery skill, which would enable him to immediately restore his stamina once per day. And because he completed a streak of 100 perfect strikes, he receives an ability called as the Adjudicator, using which he could upgrade any move to the perfect state and help break the upper limit of any skill. After Tian gained the title of Adjudicator, his power has increased quite a lot. In the next few weeks, he successfully defeated several low-tier dungeons and became even stronger. Tian thinks that the Fang family dungeons are not challenging anymore, and because he's still not qualified to enter a high-tier dungeon, he has no choice but to text Zhisheng. He wonders what tier the dungeon that he mentioned is, so Tian texts him and asks him when they can go to the dungeon that he mentioned before. Zhisheng immediately replies that they could go tomorrow. Nowadays, dungeons are like mineral deposits. Most of them are monopolized by the government or large groups, but dungeons constantly appear, so it's impossible to completely monopolize them, causing unrated dungeons to appear frequently. This kind of dungeon would have unstable output, and that's why the Fang family and other large groups are reluctant to claim it. Although the government did control it, they're not really exploiting it. This is what is called as an unclaimed dungeon. Anyone can enter this kind of dungeon as long as they have the entry permit. A lot of scattered cultivators that don't belong in the big family's drill group go to these dungeons to train. When Tian reaches the place, he meets Zhisheng, who greets him and introduces Tian to Sidu by saying that he is from the Fang family. He then introduces Sidu Yanyu to Tian and says that he swiped through a lot of huge unclaimed dungeons in a half-year time, so he's a star among cultivators. Sidu yells at Tian and asks him why he didn't come earlier, and made him wait for half a day. Tian shouts back that the meeting time was 9 o'clock and he arrived here on time. He asks Sidu if he's trying to pick a fight with him. Zhisheng whispers to Tian that Sidu has a bad temper and no patience, and asks Tian to bear with him because they would need to cooperate in the dungeon and it wouldn't be good to start a fight here. He then asks Tian to wait there so he could go take care of the procedure for entering the dungeon. So he goes up to the guards and says that it's been a while since he saw them. Tian thinks how this guy was able to get the permit to the unclaimed dungeon all by himself, and so one shouldn't always judge a book by its cover. Zhisheng shows them the 2 permits. The guard tells him that he is pretty resourceful, but after a closer look, he sees that it's a low-tier permit while the dungeon's tier is a bit higher. So he says that this isn't enough. Zhisheng slyly asks him to let them enter as they're not strangers. The guard disagrees and Zhisheng asks if they were pleased with the method he recommended last time. He also says that he has a better one this time and they would be able to gain more money easily with this one. The guards can't refuse this offer and give him permission, and Zhisheng calls out to the group. The task that Tian receives for this dungeon is to eliminate all monsters, and the mission reward is unknown. The group then notices a couple of goblins. Tian thinks that there's so many of them that it's going to be troublesome. Sidhu uses his fingers and creates sparks, which soon sends an explosion towards the goblins and wipes them all out, and 30% of the mission is complete. Zhisheng and the others admire how strong Sidhu is. To Tian, judging from the range in which Sidhu attacked, it is similar to the flame performed by the C-tier assault team, or it might be stronger than that. Sidhu says they should move forward and leads the way. Soon, the group reaches a dark room. With just a snap of his fingers, Sidhu creates a light source that brightens up the place. A bunch of goblins with weapons are headed their way. Tian strikes them all and kills them in no time at all. The other party members cheer that they're very lucky this time because Tian is also strong. But Sidhu disapproves of Tian's technique and says that this floor is already old. Using slash skill could break the support pillar and the house might have broken down. Tian asks if he's trying to teach him how to do things. Zhisheng tries to calm them down by reminding them that the main priority is to eliminate the goblins. As they continue to walk, Tian spots a crack in the wall, so he asks Sidhu to provide light for him as he wants to see if there are any monsters remaining in there. Sidhu says that if Tian wants to waste time, he should just go by himself, and that people like him would never be able to beat the boss. Zhisheng thinks how one of them has an OCD and the other is a tyrannical maniac, so it's hard to make them work together. Sidhu tells Zhisheng that he could go with Tian if he wanted to, but the other two guys decide that even though Tian is strong, he dawdles a lot, so following Sidhu would be the best option. When they face another huge goblin, all Sidhu does is a slight movement with his fingers, and that's enough to set the goblin on fire and causes it to come crashing to the ground. Sidhu walks away and the others inform him that the goblin is still moving. Sidhu just tells them to kill it if they want to and not waste his time. Zhisheng is with Tian. Tian tells him to go if he wants to and asks him not to follow him. Zhisheng says that he's the one who asked him to come to this dungeon, so he couldn't leave him alone. Tian comes across a goblin, which he immediately slays. Sidhu and the others reach a giant door and think that this must be the boss room. Sidhu breaks the door down by using his powers to burn a hole through the wall. Inside the room is an armored monster sitting with a huge sword. The group wonders if this is also a goblin. Sidhu is battling the goblin boss. He sets the boss on fire, but it does nothing to him as he has on a fire resistance armor, due to which he is able to easily walk away from Sidhu's attacks. So, Sidhu decides that he would just raise the temperature of the attack instead. But when Sidhu does this, the goblin boss blocks his fire attack with ease. So Sidhu decides that the best tactic would be to overpower the boss with quantity. So he shoots fireballs at him continuously. This works and leaves the boss phase for a moment, and so Sidhu gets closer to him and places his hands on the boss's eyes and shoots fireballs. Soon, the boss is set on fire and falls to the floor. After the boss has been killed, the group receives many materials. Sidhu tells the other members to collect it quickly so they can go to the next dungeon. Later, when Tian meets up with them, Sidhu tells him that since he is so happy looking for scraps, he should go inside and take the leftover materials, which Sidhu would be glad to give him. Tian says nothing to this, and the rest of the group follows Sidhu to the next dungeon. They say that they feel at ease following Sidhu. Tian and Zhisheng spot a great sword. Zhisheng is surprised that no one wanted the sword and left it behind. The system alerts Tian that 100% of the task has been completed. But Tian decides to make sure that there are no secret passages. So he knocks on the wall and the system shows him that only 99% completion has been achieved. Within a few moments, the completion level drops to 98%. Zhisheng calls Tian and asks him to look at something that is in front of him. Tian sees a huge creature holding the great sword in its hand. Tian immediately asks Zhisheng to stay back and gets ready to fight the beast. The monster roars and Tian jumps up on it and gets close enough to its neck. Tian uses a sword wind release move to attack the beast. Within moments, the monster takes a tumble to the ground. Zhisheng is in awe of the instant kill. The monster does not seem to be dead, so Tian says that something isn't right. The head of the monster glows brightly and it soon manages to get up and swing its sword around. Soon, the monster's head seems perfectly intact and there's no sign of injuries. Tian can't believe that it revived. Then, the beast runs towards Tian in order to attack. Although the boss can revive, it is very fragile and has a low movement speed. After a while, Tian manages to easily slay him multiple times. However, the boss keeps resurrecting. When Tian kills the boss for the 7th time, the light begins to disappear. Zhisheng says that after 7 times, the boss is finally dead. But Tian warns him that something is not right and tells him not to come here. Soon, the lights begin to gather together, and the boss revives into a tier boss called the Goblin Warrior. Tian and Zhisheng are shocked that the Goblin boss evolved. The Goblin Warrior swings its sword at Tian, which produces 3 blades of lights. Tian is stunned upon seeing this, and all of the lights do some damage, so Tian learns that it is not an illusion. As he scrambles to think of ways to fight the goblin warrior, it comes running at him while swinging its sword. Tian manages to run away from it, but not for long as his back hits a wall. The goblin warrior has him cornered and Tian thinks that he's going to die. But suddenly, the goblin warrior stops its advances, leaving Tian confused. He then notices Zhisheng using a shadow taunt skill to stall the boss for a while. Zhisheng tells Tian to think of something in the meantime. He then yells at the boss and runs away, leading him away from Tian. Tian is surprised that his skill is shadow taunt, and he noted that it was even enough to affect an A-tier boss, so that skill must be high tier. Even though Tian had killed the boss many times, it still prioritizes its attack on Zhisheng. Zhisheng's hate value was higher than his, but since it looks like Zhisheng only has shadow taunt skill, he may not be able to hold on for long. So, Tian decides to do something about it. He activates Adjudicator skill. This would enhance perception to the perfect state. This works perfectly as Tian is now able to see and know their movements even when his eyes are closed. He then yells at Zhisheng to stop taunting the boss and asks him to go hide. Tian faces the goblin warrior once again, but this time, he feels like he can sense and calculate the boss's moves. The goblin warrior uses a 5 lights chain slash, which Tian immediately perfectly copies. Using this, Tian successfully defeats the boss, who gets sliced into pieces. Tian then says that his sword technique is more perfect than the goblin warrior. The mission progress finally reaches 100%, and as a reward, Tian receives an ability called the Substitute Puppet. This would allow him to withstand 9 fatal injuries and increase his speed for 5 minutes. However, it would be weakened once time passes and he would be paralyzed for 24 hours. After leaving the dungeon, Sidhu felt dissatisfied and immediately led the team into another unknown dungeon. The team is currently in the Arctic permafrost. Led by Sidhu, the group walk around when they spot a giant bird hovering above them. It is a B-tier boss named the Ice and Snow Bird. The group members are glad that this is the boss. One of them says that Sidhu's fire element can easily restrain the bird's snow element, so this would be their win again. With a few simple hand gestures, Sidhu shoots fire attacks towards the bird, but it immediately flies away and escapes. Sidhu notes that the bird is very agile, so he decides to overwhelm it with quantity like he did previously in the other dungeon. He shoots fireballs at it continuously, hoping to bring the bird down. However, it ends up falling on his group members as the flames are being blown back by the bird. Sidhu wonders if the bird boss has an ice and wind dual attribute, so he conjures up a giant fire attack and flings it towards the bird. But the bird sends down a shower of ice spikes down on it and puts out the fire, and the remnants fall on the team again. Sidhu is frustrated that the flames are not able to melt the ice spikes. Sidhu realizes that he is restrained by the bird's attributes. The others run for cover and say that Sidhu is troublesome. At that moment, the bird flies right above them and drops more ice spikes, blocking their way. They try to come up with a plan to escape and Sidhu creates an opening for them by melting the spikes with his flames. They thank him for his help and before they run away, they ask if he is not coming with them too. Sidhu tells them to not underestimate him and stop the nonsense and leave. Soon, the bird attacks Sidhu again with its ice crystals. Sidhu raises his hand and tries to melt the spikes with the flame attack. Meanwhile, Zhisheng and Tian walk out of the dungeon with the rewards. Zhisheng is overjoyed that he earned so much today. Tian tells Zhisheng that he would give him his share after he changes it to money. He also says that they would split it equally. They both then spot Sidhu, followed by their team members with burns and frostbites. Zhisheng asks Sidhu what happened to him and what boss made him so embarrassed. The other members say that the boss was too strong and had both ice and wind attributes and that Sidhu was restrained. Feeling intrigued, Zhisheng asks him what the boss looked like. Sidhu tells him to not ask what he is not supposed to ask. And since Zhisheng just came out of the dungeon, Sidhu tells him that he shouldn't have followed someone like Tian in spite of him telling him that it would be a waste of time. Zhisheng tells Sidhu that it is not true and that he never actually killed the boss. He explains to Sidhu that the goblin boss had 9 lives and kept resurrecting until it became an A-tier boss, which they both defeated after a lot of effort. He then shows him the rewards that they were granted. Tian tells Sidhu that his impatient personality is not a good thing and that it is better to be as steady as he is. He also says that he is the one that beat the boss and it is Sidhu that is wasting his time. This angers Sidhu and Tian tells Zhisheng that they should get going. Before leaving, Zhisheng tells Sidhu that would be all for today and that they would work together next time. Sidhu feels disappointed that even when just encountering a boss and not even defeating it, he could not protect his team members. He feels ashamed that his own attacks hit them. He then thinks to himself that maybe it is time to end the team just like his father had said. At home, Tian is checking out the reward he was granted for defeating the tier boss, the stand-in puppet. He thinks about how before this, he had received the ability to fully recover his strength daily, and now, he could say that he has 9 lives with full physical strength. Tian's phone beeps with a message. He opens it to see that it is a message from Fang Quanshui. She says that the training group would be holding a competition tomorrow for new members to select talents who could enter C-rank dungeons and above. She also mentions that Tian has to come tomorrow for the competition. The next morning, at the arena of the Fang family, it is announced that the annual audition has started again, and that today would be the day where recruits would get to see whether they get the chance to enter high-tier dungeons or not. Fang Daxing sits on a throne with Fang Chunyi and Quanshui beside him. The announcer then says that the group selection has ended and those who are in the top 8 will get a new spot. He also says that there are 112 applicants this year, so there would be many exciting performances to look forward to. Everyone in the crowd cheers out of excitement. Quanshui asks Tian if he is confident enough. He replies by saying that he is not familiar with others as Chunyi watches them intently. 2 recruits have an intense fire and ice battle. Soon, it is Tian's turn to fight. His opponent is Yang Yang, who is a subordinate of Coach Fang Dun. The announcer says that one is a high-profile F-tier rookie, and the other was in 9th place during the previous year, so they would wait and see the result of the battle between them both. Yang Yang says to Tian that he was 1 place short of entering the advanced rating team last year as only 8 members would be chosen. So, he says that this year, he has to be promoted. As soon as the announcer tells them to start, Yang Yang charges at Tian. However, Tian uses Ferocious Tiger Punch on him. This causes Yang Yang to fly back and hit himself against the wall. The announcer says that last year's 9th place has been defeated in seconds, and so, the winner is Yin Yangshan. Seeing this, Fang Daxang tells Quanshui that the rumors are true and that she really found a treasure. At the end of round 2, Yang Yang is once again beaten by Tian. By the end of round 3, Yang Yang asks Tian for mercy. Soon, this year's top 8 candidates are selected and congratulated, and Tian is one of them. Standing next to him are Lan Zimo and Liu Tian. Tian tells them that he did not expect them to be here too. Lin Ting tells Tian that he underestimated him before he watched his battle. Then, the announcer says that these 8 candidates can now enter C-tier, or higher rating teams, but the battle isn't over yet. There are 7 more games left to decide the champion. The champion would receive rare props that would be presented personally by the owner. Fang Daxing says that to spice up the fight, several special weapons and props would be offered. The players would be free to choose a weapon according to their own characteristics. He then says that he hopes that they would contribute to an exciting duel. So, a half-an-hour break is given for the players to pick their weapons. Fang Chunyi uses this time to instruct Liu Tian, Lan Zimo and Lin Ting to kill Tian no matter what weapon they use. He also says that he would arrange to get them the best weapons. Lan Zimo says that Tian is incredibly strong and this would be difficult to execute in public. Chunyi says that he has already made arrangements. Since Tian's favorite weapon is a long sword, Chunyi has already smeared weakening poisons on all of the sword handles provided. He then says to his team that after Tian touches it, the poison will begin to work, and then they must wait for him to weaken and then pretend to kill him by mistake. So then, this would definitely prove that they are innocent. Lin Ting says that if Tian is strong enough, he would naturally meet him in the finals, and then he would deal with him himself and not use methods like poisoning, which is easy to notice. Fang Chunyi says that the post-match autopsy is under him so no one would figure it out. He then asks Lin Ting if he is doubting him. Lin Ting replies that he would not dare to do such a thing. After the break, the competition begins again. The announcer invites the players to come and choose their weapons by hand. Tian walks up to the swords and can't help thinking that the decoration of these swords are too much. Even the hilt and gauntlet are asymmetrical and none of them seem to be as good as his own sword. So Tian walks away from there without picking any weapon. The announcer says that he is very confident to do so. Fang Daxian says that Tian has a lot of personality, and Fang Quanshui tells him that Tian has obsessive-compulsive disorder, and that maybe the weapons are not to his taste. Fang Chunyi is disappointed that Tian did not pick any weapon. The very first step in his plan has gone wrong. But then, he thinks that this does not matter because as an assassin, Lin Ting has stealth skills and it is easy for him to stab at close range. He thinks that even if Tian had managed to dodge his first attempt, the ending would still be the same. The first round of the duel begins and it is between Lan Zimo and Tian. She is worried that Tian is using his own sword. The host announces that the battle has begun, but Lan Zemo immediately raises her hand and says that she abstains. The host is surprised to hear this, so she says that she has made it to the top 8, so she has qualified for the admission to the high-tier dungeons, so there would be no need to battle anymore. The other recruits get angry after hearing this and protest that she should go away and not take up a spot if she does not want to battle. Fang Chunni thinks what a coward Lan Zemo is, so Tian wins the first round and the second round begins. It takes place between Lin Ting and He Yuan. Lin Ting wins the battle. A few more rounds later, the finals take place. This is between Lin Ting and Tian. The host says that this is going to be a fierce battle, which leads to cheers and excitement from the crowd. Fang Daxang says that things have gotten interesting as Tian is from Quan Chui and Lin Ting is from Chunni, and they're both the ones meeting in the finals. So, Daxang looks forward to the results. Fang Chunni and Quan Chui watch on keenly too. Soon, the duel starts and immediately, Tian and Lin Ting clash their swords. They each try to push the other off until they both stumble backwards. Tian then slashes his sword, which emits 3 blades of light. This shocks Lin Ting. Suddenly, Lin Ting has disappeared and Tian is beyond confused. Fang Quanshui realizes that Lin Ting has used stealth to hide himself. Tian looks around him, trying to figure out where his opponent is. Suddenly, he senses a presence near him and holds his sword in front of him. This works effectively to block Lin Ting's attack. Lin Ting is surprised that Tian was able to do so. He thinks how if Tian had not blocked him, he would have been able to cut through his abdomen. He wonders if Tian can see him, so he decides to test it out just to make sure. He places his sword in front of Tian's chest, but there are no reactions from him, so he realizes that he cannot see him. So he goes to attack him with the sword. However, Tian senses it and dodges it and attacks back by swinging his own sword. So Lin Ting realizes that Tian would be able to see him as long as he attacks him. Tian has already raised his perception to perfection, but Lin Ting adds more speed to throw off Tian. Tian is unable to keep up with Lin Ting's movements. Fang Chunni watches this smugly and thinks that the first attack of the dagger has already cut him, and the more he moved, the quicker the dagger would take effect. Soon, Tian is marked with cuts and bruises and he still cannot keep up with the speed. Suddenly, he drops down to his knees. Lin Ting then reveals himself. He has stabbed Tian with his dagger. Fang Quanshui watches in horror and Lin Ting is announced as the winner. He says to Tian that it is fun to kill people. Now that Tian can see him, he grabs hold of his shirt and says that he caught him. He then throws a strong punch to his face and Lin Ting takes a tumble. Then, Tian uses the stand and puppet ability, which would help him resist a fatal wound and instantly restore 15% of his HP. Upon using this, Tian's wound immediately starts to disappear and heal. Because of Tian's perfect punch, Lin Ting has been knocked out completely. The host says that Tian's chest was penetrated and he was still able to successfully counterattack and used his healing skill as a last resort. He then announces that the winner of the final duel is Yin Yangshan. The crowd erupts into cheers and even Fang Daxang says that it was very good and that Tian used a very smart battle tactic. He then notices the dagger on the floor. He recognizes it as the bloodthirsty dagger. Due to its overly violent nature, it should not have been one among the provided weapons. Tian's chest was penetrated by this dagger and even if he had healed, he should not have been able to bounce back like that. So he thinks that it's not just Tian's abilities that cannot be tested, but that he also has other secrets. Tian was able to defeat a B-grade assassin while using an A-tier weapon, so Daxang is afraid that his real abilities are not beneath Chunni. The champion is then asked to come up and receive the prize from the master. Tian is congratulated by Fang Daxang, who says that a talented person like him has come from the Jiangshan generation. He also says that Tian is very good and it is no wonder that Quanshui has always admired him. Tian tells Fang Daxang that he is too kind. Daxang then says that since Tian uses a sword, he would give him a sword as a prize. He presents him with a sword and says that it is called the Last Clouds of Kantong. In his mind, Tian thinks that is not right. Tian thanks Daxang for it and says that he does not need the sword. Fang Quanshui tells Tian to not be disrespectful and hurry up and accept it. But Tian refuses it yet again. Fang Chunni yells at Tian, asking him how he could dare to refuse something that the master had given him. Fang Daxang says that it is okay and asks Tian what he wants since he doesn't seem to like the sword much. He begins to say that he does not want anything, but he drops to the floor. When Tian wakes up, he is at the hospital. A nurse comes up to him and asks him if he woke up already. Tian tries to think of what happened, so she tells him that when he lost consciousness, his heartbeat was irregular, and he was sweating profusely, so she did not expect him to wake up so fast. She also says that those with abilities are quite strange. She then asks him to wait because she is going to call the master. Tian thinks that losing consciousness must have been because of the side effects of the stand-in puppet. He also realizes that he is in the Fang family's medical center. The skill's description had said that he would be paralyzed for 24 hours, so Tian wonders how long it has been. Since he also has a body recovering skill that he received after defeating the turtle, he is sure that he would be able to get up immediately. Fang Daxang shows up with Chunyi and Quan Shui and asks Tian how he is doing. Tian says that it is nothing and that he can go home soon. Daxang tells him that he is very healthy because even though he was stabbed by that dagger, he only had to rest for half a day. If it was anybody else, a mere touch from the dagger would make them require a month of rest. In his mind, Daxang thinks that winning Tian over would be worth it. He also tells Tian that he has a good feeling about him and his abilities, and that his willingness to follow Quan Shui is also fortunate. He then says to Tian that since he did not like the sword that he gave him, he could ask him for anything and it would be granted. He then says that he and Chunyi would leave as they have a lot of business to take care of and that Quan Shui would keep him company. But Chunyi just stands there and doesn't move. So Daxang asks him if he doesn't have things to do. Chunyi does not reply, so Daxang says that he would give him a task since he has nothing to do. He says that the dagger that Lin Ting used in the competition was not provided by them. And since he is his person, Daxang asks him to investigate it. Chunyi looks at him in anger while Tian thinks that Fang Chunyi was the one to give the dagger to Lin Ting. Fang Chunyi leaves the room angrily. He thinks how all these years he has been conscientiously helping the Fang family and the union and recruiting talent. Everyone in the family has heartfelt admiration towards him, so he thinks why Daxang is not pleased with him.